Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hello and welcome to Your Forever Home, the podcast, the bathroom design essentials season. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to episode 9 of this season. And today I'm going to be talking to you about bathroom taps and showers. And I have the very special guests from Reece Bathroom Life in Brighton, Victoria, Cathryn, Matchett and Trisha, Narde. Now, for those of you who listened to the Kitchen Design Essentials season, I had Trisha join me in that season to talk about kitchen taps and kitchen sinks. So it's with absolute pleasure that I welcome them back today to go through bathroom taps and showers. And boy, oh boy, there's so many different things to consider, particularly with your showers and how much water saving there is to be had and all the little gadgets and so forth. So I really look forward to you listening to this episode today. Cathryn and Trisha have been working at Reece Bathroom Life together as showroom manager and also as senior consultant, and they have such a wealth of knowledge, and you'll hear for yourself. We talk about our own little views on different things between the taps and so forth, and what we've actually chosen for ourselves. And it was quite funny for me to chat to them about thermostatic showers that have been around in Europe for years and years and years and have sort of crept onto the Australian market quite recently here. So listen in and enjoy, and I certainly hope and trust that it's going to give you lots of information to make some really key buying decisions for your bathroom. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Forever Home, the podcast. This is the Bathroom Design Essentials season, and we're now at episode 9. Today, I'm really lucky to have Cathryn and Trisha from Reece Bathroom Life in Brighton. And today we're going to be talking about bathroom taps and showers. Of course, I've called in the experts to make sure that we're covering all the little intricacies off. So welcome, Trisha and Cathryn, to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Frances. Pleasure to be here.
It's nice to have you back because you featured last time in the Kitchen Design Essentials where we spoke about kitchen taps and sinks and all those sorts of things. And now I suppose this is really the core foundation of Reece. I always associate Reece with all the bathroom things. Your showrooms are so magnificent, particularly the one in Brighton. So let's kick it off and start talking about basins and bath taps. So just for listeners out there, obviously when you're choosing all your bathroom fittings, I know last week we spoke about tiles, which is such a big aesthetic aspect in terms of how the bathroom's going to look, but obviously how we're using our taps and the types of taps that we choose can really have an impact on not only the aesthetic but also the usability and how easy it is to actually use a particular fittings that you've selected. So we're going to kick it off this particular show or this episode in terms of talking about basin and bath taps. So I'll start with basin taps. So ladies, when we're looking at taps for the basin, and I get asked this a lot, do I have it coming out of the wall? Do I have it coming out of the basin? Do I have the tap coming out of the bench top? So what are some of the why would you choose one particular tap over another in terms of a mixer versus individual taps that you're twisting and turning for hot and cold?
Okay, so if you are looking for, I think, a bit more of a design look and ease of cleaning as well, then I would probably look at doing something in the wall rather than trying to clean around taps on the bench. That can be a bit problematic. From a retrofittable point of view, if you have to use what's already existing, then you might need to stick with the hot and cold tap rather than doing a mixer, because that's not a retrofittable sort of solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's something that I get asked a lot is, if I'm going to do a retrofit, You know, a mixer makes that a lot more difficult. So if you're wanting to put something into your forever home and you think, well, maybe I want to change it in 10 or 15 years time, you might want to have individual taps. What I find really easy though, and why I probably gravitate towards a mixer, is the control over the water temperature I find to be much easier. So I know when I was a kid, it used to drive me nuts. You turn on the cold, you turn on the hot, and you're forever trying to, it's like at the shower as well, you're forever trying to work out or trying to get the right temperature. And I just find with a mixer, you can just slightly slide it left or right and you get the right temperature. And I feel, Cathryn, your point about the aesthetic, it's a lot more streamlined, I think, the look with having a mixer. The other thing that sorry, what was that?
It's a bit more simplistic as well. There's just not as much to look at. It's just nice and simple.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a lot more contemporary. The other thing I find is from a usability functionality perspective is just the ability to actually turn taps as you get older, or you might have a lot of arthritis in your fingers. I think it's harder to turn a knob. It's like when I'm doing door hardware, I really avoid knobs that you have to turn and have a lever. So I find that a mixer is actually easier to operate when you may have really heavy arthritis in your hands. Do you find that as well with your clients that you have coming in?
Definitely. And what I find with that is we often have a conversation about whether they want a paddle or a pin style. And the paddle style, which is a bit thicker, is a bit more popular because it is a lot easier to use.
Yes.
So the mixers, because they mix a lot more quickly than the hot and cold, is also sort of water saving because you're achieving your temperature a lot quicker. So you're saving water over a period of time as well.
Yeah, and I think really the only time you'd probably go for the single taps, individual taps, is exactly as you say, you're retrofitting or you want the option to retrofit later on, or it's the aesthetic. I know in a heritage style home, sometimes the mixers are not quite hitting the mark in terms of the look, and so the aesthetic of having individual taps can actually work so much purely from an aesthetic. I just wanted to chat to you about cartridges in the wall for mixers. I know that I think that there's particular brands on the market where you can actually get the cartridge separate from the fitting itself, which means that when you're building, the plumber only has to pick up the cartridge, things don't get lost on site. But also from a retrofit perspective, I feel that that's easier. Can you just walk me through the separation of the cartridge with the actual fitting?
So when you install a mixer, there's two parts. There's the internal part that goes inside the wall before plaster and tiles go on, and then there's the trim kit which goes on after. So when there's a lot of products now there that we supply where you can get the rough-in kit first, install it so your trim kit doesn't get scratched or dusty or doesn't go missing on site. So that's the difference between the internals and the trim kit of tapware. And the cartridge is actually the actual body of the mixer. So the cartridge allows or what mixes your hot and cold water together and then produces the temperature. Mixes hot and cold water together.
So, I mean, that's the real plumbing component. Does it mean that you can retrofit then? Because the cartridge is in the wall and that's the rough-in component. That's the real plumbing part.
Yes.
So does that mean then if you're buying the same brand, could you actually get another trim kit and put that over and then connect that into the cartridge? Absolutely. Or are they specific to each tap?
So they're brand specific. Absolutely brand specific. Okay. So yes, they need to be compatible to one another. And it's also so the cartridge is something that you can replace over time. However, that's the only part that you can replace.
Yeah. Okay. So just, I think that Grower is one of the brands, because I know it from the European brands. You do that. They're always thinking ahead. So I believe that Grower do it, Hands Grower. What are some of the other brands where you can actually get the cartridge separate from, you're calling it the trim kit, the tap, that people understand. So what are some of the other brands that are available with that scenario? Is it just Grower and Hands Grower?
Sussex is
Which
an
one?
Australian, Sussex,
Yeah, I know
we're
Sussex, yeah.
an Australian tapware supplier. So they definitely have that, and being locally made, we're finding that a lot of people are really preferring to go with Australian made anything at the moment. So particularly
Yeah.
with tapware, so they can definitely do that and provide the roughing component ahead of time.
Fantastic. We are big fans of Sussex here, so that's great. Excellent. Okay. So then, in terms of buying criteria, I think this is what everyone's really keen on. What do you need to know or think about when you're going to buy? Let's just talk about taps for your basin. So, what are the real buying criteria that you need to think about to make sure you're going to get the right product for you?
Well, I usually start my conversation with clients to do with the quality. So if quality is important to you, which often it is with tapware, because you don't really want to replace that, that's definitely something. The warranties that back that up as well. So a lot of the time I find that people would prefer to go with something that has like a high 15-year warranty as opposed to something else.
Yep.
And also some suppliers don't actually have the labour and parts included in their warranties. So customers really need to be mindful of that. That's something that Reece definitely offers well after, everything's been installed and looks pretty. If something goes wrong, we help you. So that's something that customers would need to be careful of, that the warranties really support them.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. And then there's shapes and styles and colours. And as we mentioned before, with the comfort of someone who's perhaps older or has arthritis, that kind of thing, if they want to use a paddle versus a pin.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in terms of the warranty, I know that's a really big thing for me when we're specifying for clients. And I know that and Methven have always provided a really, really long warranty. And it also includes the labour. And that's something that I've always highlighted to my clients to make sure exactly as you said, Cathryn, that the warranty is not just about parts. You want to also know that they're going to come in and actually fix the problem. And so what are some of the other brands that have got those really good long warranties that also include labour?
Well, all of ours will, but for example, European brands are very strong at that. So the likes of Grower is probably right at the top of that list. Their parts and labour sort of warranty is 5 years, and usually supplies would be 12 months. So that really kind of puts them ahead, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one would be Rocker. So Rocker have a good labour and parts sort of warranty as well. Sussex, I've had a look at some of theirs recently, and they even have 2 years on some of theirs rather than just the 1 year. But they will generally have at least, through the products and the supplies we deal with, will be 12 months minimum.
Does Reece offer an additional warranty on top of that, the manufacturer's warranty, because it's been purchased through Reece? Or it's the manufacturer's warranty?
It is the manufacturer's warranty, 100%. And however, there is a product, a water purifier that we sell, that if that goes onto your mains line, it will prolong the life of all of your tapware as well as appliances. And if you use that, we do offer an additional 3 years of warranty.
Wow, that's fantastic. So does that actually purify the water? So it creates less pressure is probably not the right word, but there's it's assisting the tap to not have to work as hard.
That's correct. So it filters out all the all the particles before they get, and it's really helpful for even all your plumbed appliances, such as washing machines and even fridges now that are plumbed.
Fantastic. That's an awesome opportunity.
It is.
Really, really good for, to get an additional 3 years parts and labour. That's fantastic. And it's obviously just, giving you better water in the house anyway. So just on the quality then, Cathryn, how do we how do people determine then what makes a good quality tap? I know that we're looking at what the plumbing component, brass components are really important, but what actually determines a really good quality tap versus a poor quality tap?
Okay, so from a quality point of view, if you use grower as an example, as we've mentioned, they're sort of at the top of the in a lot of ways. They have quite a few additional features that are high quality. So, for example, they have what they call silk move, which means that the tap has a lot more easy movement over a very long period of time. They actually put a finish or a sort of extra surface on a lot of their taps, which is called Starlight. And that just means that the finish and the chrome shiny quality that everyone loves just lasts a lot longer, and it's easier to clean and keep that way. They have cool touch, which means that if you touch something that sort of has a lot of hot water going through it, you're not going to burn yourself, which is good from a safety perspective.
Yeah, especially for kids.
Or even the elderly as well.
Yes.
Another really good thing that they have with their tapware is called Grower Zero. So that actually means that there isn't any lead or nickel that's actually from the outside touching the water that's going through. They've got an extra sort of pipe inside to separate those so that the water just goes through purely. So there's some really good, good quality aspects that they've added to it.
Look, Grower, I know when I was living in Amsterdam, Grower is just like in Australia, it's a really premium product. And in Europe, it's just so standard. It's just what everyone would expect in a product is just the standard of Grower. And it's quite incredible that here it's a premium product, where in Europe, it's just like, well, you just use Grower. Yeah. It's not regarded as a high-end product at all. So it's interesting how different that is. So there are obviously features to a brand like Grower, but are there other things that people should be looking for, like the brass componentry, rather than it being a different type of metal? Brass is obviously a very strong metal and very good for tapware, but are there other things that people should be looking for?
Well, what I think is with the suppliers that sort of offer those higher warranties, it's often got to do with the quality of the cartridge that's in the wall. And that's not something that customers really think about or probably really need to either. But, when you're putting something into the wall, you want to make sure that it's quality. So those higher quality brands with their warranties, that's basically putting really good quality stuff into your wall.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you've got a brand that is going to provide a really good warranty, you know that they're backing their product. And anything with 12 months you'd be wary of anyway. And if we think about what we were talking about before, you're putting the cartridge in the wall for a wall mixer. It's going to be an absolute pain to take that out and have to replace it because it's broken down after 12 months. And I think that that's something that people should be really conscious of, because that's a lot of mucking around. It might affect your tiles, all sorts of different things, just because it's broken down in 12 months. And I think just that alone would be a really good reason to go and get something that's really worthwhile, a really good quality one. So that's great. We'll get into all the finishes. Let's talk about finishes now. I know from my perspective, from a design perspective, there's so many different types of metals. Now, I know we talked about this in the kitchen season as well, but the rose golds and all these sort of fly-by-night metals, or the fly-by-night colours, have sort of gone, although I've got a client that's really keen on the rose gold, and it's very hard to find now. But I'm finding that these living metals, so metals like bronze and brass that are going to patina over time, have really been around for quite a while now. And I certainly want to ask you, but I don't feel that they're going anywhere soon. And I feel like that it's all part of this sustainability movement. People are quite, and I mentioned this with Richard from last episode, that it's all part of this sustainability movement. We're embracing the organic. We're embracing things that are not necessarily perfect. And I love seeing those taps change colour over time, just because people are touching them and using them. They feel like they're loved. So how are you finding the metals, and particularly the living metals? Is there still a strong demand for them?
Well, I think living tumbled brass.
Is there still a strong demand for those?
Quite a strong one, and I think that also possibly comes down to the fact that it's a bit more well known, and rather than like the coppers and that sort of thing, that's a bit of a design, not risk, but you're sort of going in a really different direction.
You are.
Tumbled brass is a bit more kind of fits into a lot of other different styles that you might be looking for. Copper and iron and that sort of thing are quite particular, I think, to say an industrial style of home as opposed to Hamptons or other styles that you might have of a home. So the living tumbled brass seems to be more popular, I think.
You're right. It can transition across so many different types of homes. Really, really modern. Or really, a beautiful, Federation home. It just looks beautiful.
Yeah, but and it had a bit of depth as well.
Yeah, it does. And the gunmetal I'm finding quite popular as well. And I also am seeing that go across different types of styles of home as well. But I think the metals that were, 5 years ago, the really, really glossy or shiny coppers and rose golds and all those sorts of things, they were very in your face, and I find that these tumbled metals are a bit more pared back and a bit more real, so to speak, which may be why they're more popular. So so you're still seeing that the tumbled brass is the most popular that you're seeing?
Yeah, that would be the most popular finish of the living ones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I know we talked about this in the kitchen as well. You probably hear it coming about the black. How are we finding blacks going? Because I know when we've done events in the past, it was always the jury's out. We're not quite sure. Is it going to stay? Is it like the little black dress and it's just going to be classic forever? What's happening with black tapware?
Yeah, we've actually talked a lot about that, obviously, amongst our teams and everything, because it's interesting sort of seeing trends come in and how they sort of flow and what have you. But our idea on that, as you say, is like a little black dress, and black is sort of relatively new in the sense of tapware and showers and that sort of thing, but it's actually quite traditional in the style of, say, black and white, and that's been around for decades. Yeah. So it's just, I think, enhancing that whole old-fashioned style but bringing it into the new, and we're not really thinking that that's going to go anywhere anytime soon. You can just keep it really simple, less is more, nice statement, and just really simple. So
completely agree. I don't think it's going to go anywhere either. But I just get asked so often about the black and is it going to date? And I think this obsession with is it going to date, I always say to my clients, when it's a forever home, you need to put something in there that you love. Exactly. But again, like we said in the kitchen one, when we're talking about black, you just need to make sure it's a really good quality tap, that it's electroplated rather than powder coated, and that it's not going to chip. That this is where the quality is so important, because if you get a really cheap and nasty black tap, all of that black's going to wear off. You see it in the cafes where it's constantly being used, and it just wears off, and that just looks shocking. So that is absolutely where you're using any of these metals, that you need to make sure that you're getting a really good quality fitting, even more so than if you're just using chrome.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, okay. So in terms of bath taps, there's obviously floor mounted, wall mounted. We've got different spout lengths. We've got spouts that swivel. What are some of the core considerations to even determining, should I get a floor mounted bath tap or should I get a wall mounted bath tap? What are some of the things we need to think about?
Well, I guess starting from the swivel tap, for example, if you have a swivel outlet, that's definitely good for families because children will always find a way of hitting their head on anything. So if you've got a tap that's sticking out of the wall, they're probably going to hit their head on it at some point. And I think I've done that myself. So if you've got a little swivel tap and it can just go to the side, then it's out of the way. You can pull it out when you need it and push it aside, so it's not a problem. So that's definitely good for families. On the other end of the scale, I think with the floor-mounted option, that's really, a nice opulent sort of look. It is is a little more expensive as far as the execution. So if you basically had like the filler and the mixer and the hand shower all together, that can be a little more of an expensive way of doing it. But if you wanted the look without paying for that, you could just have like a floor mounted outlet and have the mixer somewhere else. And so you get the beautiful floor mounted look, which is a bit different, and I quite like that myself. And the mixer somewhere else. So it's just not quite as expensive, but you achieve that look at the same time.
I mean, I think you also need to have the space. I mean, not only you said it, Cathryn, that, executing the floor mounted tap means that the plumbing needs to come up from the floor. You can't have that as an afterthought if you're laying a slab. But you need the space around the bath as well. I mean, I normally see them executed with a freestanding bath. That you've got that beautiful floor mounted tap, but you also need to make sure that there is space for the tap as well as the bath. I was only having a conversation this week of someone trying to get a very small bath into a very small space, and there's no way they were going to have the option of using the floor mounted tap as well. So with the mixers then, so you need to make sure that you've got an extra long spout, so a bath spout. What's the standard length of the spouts? Because I still see clients, when we're not working on those particular areas for them, that the bath is too far away for the spout to even get to the bath. So what sort of lengths are we talking about that you can get for the extended spouts?
Yeah, well, there are a few different lengths, which is good for different styles of bath. But for instance, if you have a freestanding bath, you would like to or need to really allow just enough width to get around it to clean behind it.
Correct.
So usually sort of leave about 100 mil or a mop's width around it, if that makes it easier to understand, to clean to the sides and the back of the bath. So then the spout is usually about a 200 length, for example. Yeah. So that would be the main standard. Perhaps if you had an inset bath, and I think we're getting into all of that a bit later, need a spout that's quite as long, then you might have something that's more like 150, 160, and there is an extra length of like 250, but that would probably be if the freestanding bath is a bit further away from you.
Further away.
Yeah, but the standard would be 200.
Yeah. And do most of the tapware manufacturers make the spouts in these extra lengths, or is that going to restrict the brands that you can use because they don't all have these extendable spout lengths?
Well, I think some of them are a little restrictive and just have one option, but there are quite a few suppliers and ranges that we can offer or that are out there that have a variety of lengths. So it shouldn't really be difficult to achieve.
Yeah. So I think the key though is if someone's trying to have all their tapware match, you probably need to start with the bath first, make sure the spout's going to be long enough, and then choose the rest of the tapware for the room.
Yes.
Otherwise it's not going to match. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, definitely part of the discussion.
All right, and I think we've covered off. I did want to talk about the Australian versus the European thing. Grower for me, as I was saying, was just, and Hands Grower, they're all just these really popular brands in Europe. We're really big fans within the studio of Sussex because they are Australian made, Melbourne made. They do amazing recycling, which of course from my sustainability passion is a really big deal for me. So are there other Australian brands? I mean, we're also very big on Broadware. There are other Australian brands that clients can tap into. They're the main two.
They're the main two, yes.
Yeah. I mean, Sussex is big because they're local and they have all the beautiful colours as well. So I think if you are after something that's Australian made, is really got an amazing sustainable story, has got a great warranty, and is also provides a lot of different colours and styles, I think Sussex is a really good place to start. They just tick so many different boxes.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with them, and something that I found out a bit more recently, which impressed me, was they actually test every single piece before it leaves them and gets dispatched. So it's not just one in a batch of mixes or what have you. It's every single piece is tested, and I think that just shows.
I didn't know that either, so that's awesome that you really know that they are passionate, and it's a family business. But it's just such a great story. I think they're doing such a phenomenal job when there's hardly any manufacturing left in Australia. They've been really passionate about keeping it here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we've pretty much done and dusted on our basin and bath taps. Was there anything else that we forgot that you wanted to add in?
Actually,
I think the only thing from a colouring perspective is if people don't necessarily want to try a colour and they're sort of like, oh, that's stepping out of the box a little too far. I'm just finding that brushed nickel is quite a popular option because it's still silver and it's keeping it simple, but it's brushed and it's a bit different. And a lot of people seem to be liking that. So that's definitely moving in at a fast pace.
I agree. The brushed nickel, or the gun metal. I think we're just getting rid of all this shine. Maybe that's why all those other metals are going as well. They're just so shiny. And it is, all these brushed metals. And I think they're just a little bit more refined and sophisticated. So it's good to see that the nickel is definitely popular for us as well.
Yeah. Did you?
All right. So now we're going to move on to showers. Again, this is just such an area that is, I feel, a real personal decision. And I know in Reece, you've got such an amazing shower display that we can't exactly get under it with your head, but you can put, you've got all these showers that most women that I speak to, they want to know how good is the pressure that I know it's going to rinse out the conditioner in my hair. Men are not that fussed about that, but women want to know that the pressure is going to be enough that it's going to work. And I know with some of the really water-saving showers that it's quite misty, and you think there's no way that that's enough pressure to actually rinse out all the conditioner in my hair, but miraculously it does. So Reece have a fantastic display of showers that you can actually see the water, you can actually feel the pressure on your hand, and I'd really encourage people to go in and utilise those displays because they are fantastic. But I do feel that the shower choice is quite personal in terms of how big they are and whether it's on a rail or not. So I just wanted to walk through, though, the differences between having a shower that's on a rail versus a ceiling or a wall-mounted shower and the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. So maybe we'll start with the shower on a rail. I'll try and describe it. That is the shower that I suppose has a fixed point, but you can actually move the shower head up and down the rail that is fixed to the wall. Maybe the best way I can describe it, if you can think of a better way to describe it, because it's not visual, but that's how I would try and describe it. I like it for children in particular because it means that they can get under the shower and feel like the shower head is quite close to them. And I also really like them on a rail because it's really easy to clean. So are there other reasons why you find the shower on the rail really beneficial?
I think you've definitely touched on quite a bit of that there. I think it's also quite good for couples, for example, that are different heights. So it gives them the flexibility for the guy's taller, usually, let's say, and he can get under it and, have it close to his head. And then, the wife or what have you can reduce it for her. But the other thing too is if she isn't washing her hair, then she might want to set it more at the neck level and, not wet the hair and just have the rest of the shower happening. So there's definitely a benefit with that there. Or there's the twin shower option, which is also on the rail, so that you've got an overhead as well as the rail shower with the hand shower. Hand shower is good for cleaning as well, as you mentioned. And the overhead is really good for men because they do like the drench and just, drench themselves in it, really. So, yeah, that's another. I love it too.
I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really funny. It is such a personal thing. I love the fact that you can exactly that, change up the height. So even if sometimes I just want to go in there and wash my feet so I can have it really, really low. It just gives you so much more flexibility. So because I'm just so big on functionality, I just find a shower on a rail is just going to give you all those different functionality requirements. And I still think they can look quite nice. They're probably not as streamlined, and I think that's why some people don't gravitate towards them, because just having a shower head out of the wall or out of the ceiling aesthetically is a lot, there's a lot less going on, but I just don't feel you get the flexibility, and the double shower rail, I feel then gives you everything.
It does, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you're ceiling or wall mounted, what do people need to consider? Because I have seen some or not ideal scenarios. So if it's coming out of the ceiling or it's coming out of the wall, what sort of things should we be thinking about?
Well, the height, when it's a wall-mounted outlet, you just need to make sure that the water point is high enough for the tallest person to shower under.
Yes.
If the water point's too low, then that's quite a large issue because you can't really move the water point without pulling your tiles off and re-waterproofing, etc. So just making sure installation heights are correct, the length of the arm to make sure it comes out far enough so you're not, against the wall trying to get yourself wet. The size of the head is also quite important. Like if it's a small 900 by 900 shower space, you want the shower head to be a decent size, not a 300 millimeter head, because you'll have water everywhere.
Plus it'll look wrong.
It looks a bit unbalanced.
It'll just look out of scale. So really good points you're making here, Trisha. Sorry, keep going. These are awesome.
Yes, and when they are ceiling mounted, the ceiling height's extremely important because the higher the ceiling, the longer the arm will need to be between the shower head and the ceiling, and that's going to that's going to store water as well, the rail. So each time you're going to have to drain out all that cold water before hot water starts to become available.
True, yeah.
And also the lengths of ceiling arms, there are standard lengths. There's only 300, 450 and 600 millimeters they come in. So you just need to be mindful of that your ceiling height's not too high.
And I think that's where I've really seen the issues, where the ceiling has been, 3 meters and a 600 shower arm is just not going to make it low enough at all. So you can get them custom made.
Yes.
But this all needs to be thought about well before you're at the build stage. You really need to work out all of those details to make sure that it is going to be right on site.
And another thing that I usually point out to people with the vertical installation is the further the water has to fall to hit your head, that you're going to lose a lot of heat and pressure the further it has to go. So it might not be quite as satisfying if it has to come from a larger distance.
And I think this is where, you see it in magazines or people talk about having this rain shower effect and it's so amazing. But when you get down to the functionality of it, and it really needs to be made very specific for that particular bathroom, or you're just not going to have any of that effect. But I'm going to have a really big, massive shower head. But as you said, Trisha, if you're in a tiny little cubicle, it's just going to look ridiculous and you're just going to have water everywhere.
Yeah.
So my functionality brain just can't, it just has to function. So they're really good points. Now, the other thing with the rain heads and the really big shower heads, which I know are getting really popular, do they actually use a lot more water, or are there brands out there that are still incredibly conservative with the water consumption, even though the head is much larger?
Yes, so most showers that are on the market are 3-star rated, which means they use between 7.5 and 9 liters a minute of water. When the shower heads are larger, a lot of them now have different technologies in them, which will give you a more powerful spray without utilizing too much water. So there's certain technologies like the turbine technology that Nicholas has, one of the Italian brands, European brands, where there's a built-in turbine that will spin and push the water through with more force. You get a better water pressure out of it. So it's not using 12 liters a minute of water. It's still giving you a very satisfying drenching experience. And there are showers without any technology in them where, at a lower price point, where I would go for a smaller shower head. You get better water pressure out of a smaller head than a larger.
Yeah. And I suppose this comes back to the quality as well. When you're getting a quality shower head, you are going to be getting better technologies. I know Methven with the satin jet, again, you get that mist effect and you think, oh, but it's very, very water conserving. But you still get a really good, I think that's a great word, Trisha, is that drenching. You still feel like you're having really good pressure. But again, that's only going to come out of quality brands. And if you get the cheaper brands, they won't necessarily have the same star rating. Or you'll need to go up with your water consumption to get the same similar effect of pressure.
That's right. I'm a big fan of the Methven Satin Jet and Aura Jet. It's a fine misty kind of spray, but it is very powerful and it gives you 20% more coverage than a regular shower does. It's kind of like using a sprinkler on your lawn instead of, hosing it down. So yeah. Yes, it gives a really good coverage. They have lifetime warranties on all of their products. Yes, I love.
I'm a big fan of Satin Jet, and it's been around for a long time. It's not I suppose that's proof in the pudding of just how good it is, because it's not a really new technology. I'd say it's been around for at least 8 years.
Yes.
But yet it's still really, really good. And that's the one I was talking about before, where you look at it and you think, oh, that's just this rubbishy little mist.
Yeah.
But actually it's quite deceiving, and it really is a good pressure.
Yeah, fine but firm.
That's a good way to describe it. And I live with it, and it's trying to explain to clients, you have to experience it. So maybe it's a good opportunity to go to an Airbnb and try Satin Jet. To see what it's like. Or maybe we're going to set up where you can actually stand under the showers.
I know. We'll work on that.
It's really difficult.
It actually has a working shower where you can test and trial the shower. So you can actually get in the shower.
Where's this, sorry?
At our Richmond showroom.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's awesome for people to know.
Yeah. So
I'm sure that they're fully clothed, or I'm sure they're in their full bathing gear.
That's an enclosed bathroom.
Awesome.
You can trial our showers, and they also have thermostatic showers there that people can try.
Yeah, that was actually the next thing I wanted to chat about, was the thermostat technologies. Now, again, 20 years ago in Amsterdam, that was the most bog standard shower you could buy. Everything had a thermostat. I had to sort of get my head around. I mean, that must be technology from Grower that's 30 years old, and it's now coming to the Australian market. I know it's a little bit more advanced now. A lot of it's digital, but just walk around first what it is, and well, I know the benefits I've lived with it, but just talk about the thermostat showers available.
Sure. Thermostat. Okay, so thermostatic mixers are mixers where there's a thermostat built into them, which is not powered by electricity, and it
basically means that you get into the shower and it's at a set temperature. So I know the way I used to use mine in Amsterdam, I knew that my shower was, 36 degrees. And so it always, when I turned it on, it went to 36 degrees. So I didn't have to fiddle around with the mixer or the taps to get the temperature right. And the other thing I really liked about it is, when you're living with someone else, you might want it at 36 degrees and they want it at 40 degrees, and it automatically, then you just go to that temperature and you get your shower exactly as you want it every single time.
Yeah, you can see.
It's just awesome. So now that is my 30-year-old technology, and I'm sure that it's come along, and I know that there's digital versions of this. So are there any, what's the new technology with the thermostats?
That's right. There is definitely digital. So there's a separate controller for your temperature. So you set your temperature, and then you don't have to keep mixing. You don't have to mix your water again. So you just set and forget kind of thing. And there's just push and turn technology is quite popular in thermostatics at the moment. So you just push it to turn it on and turn the dial for pressure, and your temperature is just set there for you. What it also does is it doesn't fluctuate. Your water temperature does not fluctuate when the washing machine turns on, or someone's using the kitchen tap. That's the bit. That's a really good advantage.
Gold.
That it doesn't. Yes, you can have a comfortable shower, and it also won't scald younger children or older people, even because you've set the temperature.
Yeah.
And there's no way of make it going all the way up.
It's got a bit of a safety mechanism in there.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, particularly in bath areas. I mean, the ones in Amsterdam, I mean, they don't look like that anymore. They were pretty ugly, but it meant that it was the bath and the shower all in one, but it meant that when you're setting the bath for the child, for your kids, that it was just at that set temperature. They couldn't actually burn themselves. It was just fantastic. And then the channel always stayed cold. But now they're a bit more, sophisticated. They've got the dials and the digital, but it's just incredible that that's sort of coming out now.
Really good. I think another thing that stands out for me is also from a sustainability, environmental point of view that we've sort of talked about a bit. With normal mixers, for example, which we've sort of talked about the, mixer versus hot and cold tap, and it's a lot more effective of achieving, what you want quickly. This is even better. So a shower mixer would probably take 7 to 8 seconds for you to find the exact temperature that you want. But because you can preset this takes about 2 to 3 seconds, and therefore you're saving a lot of water over a short period of time, really, let alone the length of the shower.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So I think the $1 million question for people will be, can you install them as a retrofit?
I don't
know. So you have to do this brand new.
Yeah. So like with a mixer that you've got something in the wall and therefore you can't sort of retrofit that like you can with a hot and cold tap, you would really have to commit to the investment to go down that path for all the benefits that it has, and commit to sort of setting up the whole bathroom, take the tiles off and really get in there and set it up properly.
So this is one of those things that I think people need to be aware of. If you want something like this, you need to sort it out at, when you're building or renovating. It can't be done later on. So this is where you want to invest at this time. I think they're worth their weight in gold.
But that's
it almost feels like, oh yeah, well I can sort of, easily change the temperature of my, tap. That's a big luxury you don't really need. And I suppose it is a luxury, ultimately, but having lived with one, you can't imagine how easy and great they are. And I think what your point about the sustainability aspect, less water, Cathryn, is so valid. So it may feel like a luxury, but I think once you've lived with one, it's like, why would I ever not want this?
And environmental and sustainability, anything I'm finding is really important to the young set that are sort of coming through now, and the
millennials, Cathryn.
Pardon?
The millennials.
Yes. It's just really important to them. So I think, moving forward, it will become a lot more popular because they'll see the benefits like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they're a lot more advanced than any other generation, because they're the ones that are going to have to live with it. And I think it's awesome that they are, the younger generation are so mindful of these things, and Australian made. So that's great. The last thing I wanted to cover off is just with regards to accessories and things like that. And I think the key thing for listeners is that, if you are choosing, a bronze tap, you need to make sure that your accessories are the same colour. Another thing that I see happen that is really not a great look is they've got, round base taps or circular, and then they've got square fittings or square accessories. And I'm talking about your towel rails and your toilet roll holders and hand towel rails and things like that. So it really all needs to match to get a cohesive look. If you're using a black tap, you need to make sure that you've got black accessories as well. You just can't use it in isolation. And I know we were talking offline around heated towel rails, which are becoming more and more popular. Do you want to just walk us through a little bit about heated towel rails and why you would install one? And because they are becoming really, really popular.
They are. Heated towel rails are absolute luxury for the cold winter days that we have here in Melbourne. It's nothing better than getting out of the shower and using a nice, crisp, warm towel in winter. So they are becoming more and more popular. They are available in 2 different types. There's electric and there's also hydronic ones. electric towel ladders are the ones where there's an electric element that warms the towel ladder up. They are quicker to heat up than hydronic ones. So hydronic towel rails are where there's a copper tube that runs inside the towel rail that contains water that heats up. So the hydronic heat is more radiant.
Yeah, it is.
Compared to electric. And that is why it also takes slightly longer to warm up than an electric one. There's also single individually heated rails available now, which we did not have in the past. There were always the ladder style ones that were quite chunky. So now you can just get individually heated rails, and you can have as many or as few as you like. They look great in odd numbers, so we tend to have a combination of 3s or 5s in bathrooms.
I think they're a lot more streamlined. They just look a lot more sophisticated, the singular ones. They're just much nicer than having this big, massive thing of metal on your wall. So, yeah, they look great, the single ones.
I mean, verticals as well now. So that's something that's a bit more of a new offering, which I love personally. And they just sort of, go vertically. And as you say, in 3s, you can do it in 2 or 1, but 3s are more popular. And then you can kind of hang 2 towels, and get the benefit of the heat on both of them at the same time, all the way down the towel.
Yeah.
That's quite good. And another thing that can be a feature is like a floor to ceiling. So that is definitely an investment in design, but they can look really, quite a statement piece in a bathroom if it's the right size as well. So that's another option people don't kind of think of, I think.
I think where I've seen clients get caught out is where they want a heated towel rail right next to the bath. And so people need to be really mindful of the regulation that you need, just like a power point next to a basin. You need to make sure the current regulations are that you need at least 500 ml between a water source and a power source. Correct. And so a heated towel rail, certainly the electronic ones, is regarded obviously as an electronic point. So you can't have them next to the bath, even though that may feel like that's where you want to have it. So that's also something to be mindful of when you're actually laying out the design. I think there was something else that you mentioned offline, Trisha, about the perception that a heated towel rail is also then going to heat the room.
That's right. I've had quite a few people think that, and it's that's something to really, really be mindful of, that a heated towel ladder does not warm the space around it. So it's an ambient heat, which means when you touch the heated towel ladder, you won't burn yourself. So imagine that's the kind of temperature it will go to. It will not warm the space up. To warm the space in the bathroom, you'll need a different source of heat, either underfloor heating or those heat lamps or ducted heating or something like that.
Oh, Trisha, please don't say heat lamps.
No.
Sorry, Trisha. I'm not going to edit this out, but I just pretend I've edited it out. We can't have heat lamps in the bathroom. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They are not attractive. We can have underfloor heating.
Yes.
But we're not going to have heat lamps. But that's okay. We need another heat source.
That's right. So just be very mindful of that.
I think, though, with the hydronic versions, I mean, the whole premise about the whole hydronic is based on hydronic heating, and it will, and you said it, Trisha, that it's a more radiant heat. It won't replace a heater in that space, but it will give you a little bit more heat than what an electric one will, just because it is designed to disperse heat or radiant heat rather than just like the electric one. It's more localized.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not going to heat your space.
Yeah.
That's been fantastic. Now, was there anything that you wanted to add or enlighten our listeners with that perhaps we haven't covered off in here that I've forgotten about or that they should know about? I think it's fantastic that they can go and have a shower at Richmond and try out the showers. I think that's an awesome service that Reece provide at the Richmond showroom, and that's Richmond in Melbourne, not Richmond, New South Wales.
Yes, that's right. I guess the only thing that sort of springs to mind at the moment, perhaps, is that we didn't cover functions of sprays in showers. So
let's do that.
Let's do that. Yeah. So with your overheads, you don't generally have options with that. A grower do have one that has options of jet sprays and all that sort of thing, but that's generally something that you'd have in the hand shower. So again, that's another benefit to having a hand shower.
Absolutely.
Rail sort of shower thing. So it can have like jet sprays, which are good for massage. There are some that are a bit more sophisticated that kind of, if I can describe it, go in and out like that.
In and out.
But
let's just visualize in and out. It goes in and out.
Yeah. And if you put that with a jet, it's really good for massage. And I find that fantastic because, you know, when you do sport and you've got really sore muscles and things like that, it actually gives you a really good massage function. And you're not just going to get that from a normal spray or an overhead. So, yeah.
I think that's a really good point. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is really important for a buying criteria for a shower too. And I suppose it still leads back to the shower on the rail. The hand shower it's got so many more added benefits than just the one coming out of the ceiling or the wall. But again, it's going to be a personal preference, and it does affect the aesthetic. But I think choosing a shower for all the benefits that a shower can provide you, and having the option to have different types of sprays is really important. So thank you for covering that off, Cathryn.
And often they're hidden as well, so it's not necessarily going to affect the aesthetic side of it.
You push a button.
Yeah.
You push a button. And some of them have got, I think Methven have even got 4 or 5 different types of sprays and things that you can choose. I know a lot of them just have 2, but they've got 4 or 5. That's something nice for the kids to play and muck around with. Let me try this spray. Let me try that spray.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or washing the dog with.
Yeah, exactly. I have heard a lot of people I know wash their dog with them in the shower. I don't, but you know that those different sprays could be very effective. And again, there's another reason to have a shower on a rail. You can wash your dog in the shower.
That's right.
Lucky
reasons. All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies. That's fantastic insight for everyone on just choosing your taps and your showers, and really making sure you really know what you're after before you start putting all the nuts and bolts into the, you know, getting all the things organised for your plumbing and so forth, because this is going to impact all of those things. So that's been fantastic. Thanks so much, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Bye for now. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.